Welcome to SciSpectrum Lab Essentials, your source for equipment, instrument, and consumables.
Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the true unsung heroes of the modern lab. You know, it's a piece of gear that makes massive breakthroughs possible, but you've probably never even thought about it. So, let's unbox the science behind the laboratory incubator.
Okay, let's start with a really big question. Scientists want to study cells, right? They need to understand diseases, test new drugs, all that amazing stuff. But to do that, they have to keep those cells alive and happy on a lab bench. So how in the world do you trick a cell into thinking it's still inside a warm, cozy, stable body when it's actually in a little plastic dish?
And wow, this slide just lays it all out, doesn't it? It's a tale of two completely different worlds. Inside a body, a cell is living the dream. It's a perfect 37 degrees Celsius, it's humid, it's sterile. But you put that same cell on a lab bench, the temperature is all over the place, the air is bone dry, and it's a minefield of dust, germs, you name it. It's a totally hostile environment. You can't run a real experiment like that. All right, so here's our game plan for figuring this out. First, we're going to dig a little deeper into this whole scientist's dilemma. Then we'll meet the machine that solves it, the RHI-80. After that, we'll see how it controls the environment, walk through a day in the life of a lab, and finally, look at the absolutely mind-blowing science it makes possible. So let's start with that core problem. To get any meaningful results, scientists have to create a space that's controlled, predictable, and totally safe for their experiments. Without that control, the data is just useless. They literally have to build an artificial replica of the conditions for life itself. And that's where this brilliant device comes in, the laboratory incubator. You know, you can almost think of it as a 5-star, all-inclusive resort for cells. Its one and only job is to create the perfect little world. The exact right temperature, the right atmosphere, so these microscopic guests can just chill out, thrive, and tell us their secrets. Okay, so let's get specific and meet the star of our show today. We're going to be looking at a particular model, the REMI RHI-80. This thing is an absolute workhorse that you will find humming away quietly in labs all over the globe. So what are we looking at here? Well, it's got an 80-liter capacity. That's a ton of room for running multiple experiments at once. It can hold a temperature anywhere from just a little warmer than the room all the way up to a toasty 60 degrees Celsius. And you can see the design is just so practical. The inside is all high-grade stainless steel, which is super easy to clean. And the wire mesh shelves, they make sure warm air gets absolutely everywhere. So, it's a nice box, sure, but how does it actually do its job? I mean, it's one thing to have the hardware, but the real magic is in the control. Let's see how a scientist actually tames the environment inside this thing. So the number one most crucial thing is temperature. For most human cells, that magic number is 37 degrees Celsius. Why? Because that's our body temperature. It's the Goldilocks zone. If it gets too cold, the cells just stop doing their thing. Too hot, and they die. So nailing that temperature and keeping it there is the incubator's whole reason for being. Now, the secret sauce that makes all that stability possible is this little piece of genius, the microprocessor PID controller. Seriously, this is the brain of the whole operation. It is constantly, and I mean constantly, measuring the temperature inside and making tiny, tiny adjustments to the heater. It's like a thermostat with a PhD. That PID, by the way, it just stands for a fancy math system that lets it predict, react, and fine-tune itself to hold that temperature rock solid. And you know the best part? Using this super smart brain is ridiculously simple. You literally just turn it on, hit set, use the up and down arrows to punch in the temperature you want, and hit enter. That's it. The machine handles the rest, which lets the scientist focus on, the actual science. But how precise are we talking? Well, the RHI-80 holds the temperature to within plus or minus 1 degree. That's pretty amazing. And for that extra peace of mind, it has a built-in alarm. If for any reason the temperature starts to drift, a loud alarm goes off and a light starts flashing. Think about that. That one little feature could save months, maybe even years of priceless research from going down the drain. Okay, so we know what it is, and we know how it works, but what does using it actually look like? Let's walk through a typical day in the lab and see the RHI-80 in action.
So picture this, a cancer researcher is starting a brand new experiment. At hour 0, she places her meticulously prepared culture dishes inside, closes the door, and the incubator takes over. Maybe 12 hours later, she'll walk by and do a quick check, not even opening the door, just a quick glance at the digital display to see that 37 degrees shining bright. Then, at the 24-hour mark, she can take the culture out, totally confident that it's been living in a perfect, stable world, ready for analysis.
And if we look a little closer inside, you can see how everything is designed with a purpose. That shiny stainless steel chamber, It's not just for looks, it's super smooth, with no cracks for germs to hide in, so it's a breeze to keep sterile. Those wire mesh shelves, they let the warm air flow all around every single dish, so there are no cold spots. And that PUF insulation packed in the walls, it just locks the heat in, which keeps the temperature stable and saves a ton of energy. It's just smart design.